You ever wonder why that new miracle diet works wonders for your friend, but does absolutely nothing for you? Well, it's one of the biggest puzzles in nutrition. And today, we're going to unpack the science that finally explains it.
Okay, let's just get right into this, because it's something we've all felt, right? You follow the plan, you eat all the right stuff, but the results, they just don't show up. And the reason isn't about willpower. It's because that whole one-size-fits-all approach to diet is just, well, it's broken. The real answer is hidden deep inside our own bodies.
And that's where this really cool idea comes in: precision nutrition. Now, this is not just another diet trend, okay? This is a whole field of science that gets that we are all totally unique. The goal is to give you dietary advice that's tailor-made for you by looking at everything from your genetic code to the tiny bacteria living in your gut.
Now, to really wrap our heads around how this works, we're going to look at two fascinating, and I mean extreme, examples of human adaptation. We're talking about people in tropical South Asia and the freezing cold Arctic. Their stories are incredible, and they show us just how powerfully our ancestors' diets have literally written our modern genes.
I mean, just look at the contrast here. It's amazing. On one hand, you've got the warm climate of South Asia, which for thousands of years supported these mostly plant-based, high-carb diets for a quarter of the world's population. Then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you have the Arctic, where an animal-based, high-fat diet wasn't just a choice, it was the only way to survive. These are two completely different nutritional universes.
So here's a great way to think about it. Imagine your DNA is an instruction manual for how to process food. Simple enough, right? But here's the catch. That manual was written thousands and thousands of years ago for a world with totally different foods available. And that simple idea? Well, that's the core of the challenge so many of us face today.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's look at the actual genetic blueprints that evolved from these different diets. This is where we can literally see how what we ate rewrote our DNA, leaving a story of evolution for us to read today.
So first, let's talk about carbohydrates. You know, the fuel that powered entire agricultural societies. How did a diet packed with things like grains and beans literally change the human genome?
Well, it comes down to a gene called AM1A. This gene makes an enzyme right in your saliva that starts breaking down starch the second you eat it. So in South Asia, where diets were full of rice, lentils, and bread, people evolved to have a ton of copies of this gene. It basically supercharged their ability to get energy from carbs. But in the Arctic, where the ancestral diet had almost no carbs, they have far, far fewer copies.
And we're not talking about a small difference here. The scale of this adaptation is just staggering. The number of AM1A gene copies in some South Asians can go from 2 all the way up to 15. That is a massive evolutionary advantage written directly by thousands of years of what was on the dinner plate.
Okay, next up is dairy. And this one is wild, because most mammals on Earth can't digest milk after they grow up. So how did some humans get this superpower? It's one of the clearest, most powerful examples of our genes evolving right alongside our culture. This ability is called lactase persistence. And if you look at northern South Asian groups, people with a long history of herding cattle, you find the genetic mutation that lets adults digest milk is pretty common. But for Arctic populations who never had dairy animals, lactose intolerance is just the default setting. Once again, their ancestors' diet directly shaped their biology today.
And that brings us to our final piece of the puzzle: fats.
And this is where the story gets really specific. It shows how different groups evolved completely different genetic toolkits for processing fats, depending on whether they came from plants or animals.
It all boils down to a group of genes called FADS. In South Asia, there's a high frequency of a variant that's been nicknamed the vegetarian allele. It makes people incredibly good at creating those essential long-chain fatty acids from plant sources. On the flip side, the Inuit have a marine diet variant, which is built for a diet already loaded with those fatty acids from fish and seals. So their bodies cleverly learned to slow down their own production. Two different problems, two brilliant genetic solutions.
And the source material just nails it. This vegetarian allele
was a critical adaptation. It gave people who relied on plants a huge nutritional leg up by letting them make their own supply of those crucial long-chain fatty acids, the good stuff that others were getting directly from meat and fish.
So, let's just pull that all together for a second. For South Asian populations, we see these amazing adaptations for getting the most out of starch in plants. For Arctic populations, we see incredible adaptations for a diet based on animal fats. Every single gene tells a story of survival, of optimization, perfectly tuned to an ancient environment.
But, and this is the big but, what happens when these ancient, finely tuned genes crash head-on into our modern, globalized food world? This is what scientists call the mismatch, and it is at the absolute heart of so many of our modern health problems.
For people of South Asian descent, genes that were once a superpower can suddenly become a liability. That vegetarian allele, so good at making fats from plants, can go into overdrive when it meets modern seed oils, potentially cranking up inflammation. And those incredible adaptations for a high-carb diet, they get totally overwhelmed by refined sugars and processed foods, leading to a soaring risk for things like type 2 diabetes and heart disease.
And the mismatch is just as dangerous, just in a different way, for Arctic populations. Their genes are hardwired for a low-carb world, which makes them incredibly vulnerable to metabolic problems when they're exposed to modern diets filled with sugar and refined grains. And in a truly tragic irony, one specific gene that probably helped them survive starvation is now linked to higher infant mortality when babies are fed modern formulas. It's a devastating example of this mismatch.
Now, I know this all sounds a little bleak, right? But understanding the problem is always the first step toward finding the solution. The future of nutrition isn't about finding one perfect diet for everyone. It's about learning how to read our own personal instruction manual.
So what is the big takeaway here? What does this mean for you? The key to better health might not be chasing the latest trend, but actually looking backward into your own heritage. The real goal is to align the food on our modern plates with our ancient genetic blueprint.
And this is the path forward. Real precision nutrition isn't just one thing. Yeah, it starts with your DNA, your genetic profile, but it also looks at your microbiome, those trillions of gut bacteria. And of course, it considers your ancestral history. The idea is to combine all of this information to create a way of eating that actually works for you in the long run because it's built specifically for your body.
Which leaves us with one final, powerful question. Our bodies carry the stories of our ancestors, their environments, their struggles, their food. So the question is no longer, what's the best diet? The question is now, what's the best diet for me? What is your body's instruction manual telling you?